So after this session, you will be able to determine the best approach for your work group, right? And then you'll be able to also create a workspace for that work group. You'll be able to, or understand how to create a workspace, really. And then you'll also be able to create, work with a personal team. So how to create your own personal productivity, and also just some best practices. All right, so we're going to start with planning, with how the overall planning process works. So just like anything, you guys have all done this before. When you're getting ready to embark on a new project or a new thing that you got to do, you kind of go through this process, right? You assess, and then you implement, and then you maintain it, right? Pretty much we all do that. So it's no different when you're considering a group of people and a project or a process that they have to embark on, right? So you're going to walk through an assessment process, and then then we'll walk through an implementation process, and then we'll walk through what maintenance looks like. Okay. So I see somebody's already asking for the link for the Teams and Channels course. I got to tell you, it is not live yet. It will be live next week. So we don't have a link yet. There's nothing open for you to sign up for, but there will be soon. Okay. All right. So step one, Sarah and I came up with these 4 questions. What does your team do? Or I don't read them exactly the way they're written. I don't know why, but what is the purpose of your team? I like to say, what does your team do? How does your team execute its function? I like to say, how does your team do what they do? And then what are the challenges? And how do you know your team is doing well or not, right? What is your measurement for success, right? So those are the 4 questions we came up with. So my first caveat, Sarah and I always have some caveats in our training, because we do design all of our training to kind of meet the needs of our general customers. So that meaning it could be anybody from a mom and pop shop that's using the freemium version of Teams to a big, huge, ginormous organization that has, hundreds of thousands of employees, right? And it could be any industry, it could be any part of the globe or the entire globe. And it could be any age group. So it's just, we have to kind of create a more generic levelization of our training. When you're looking at these questions, you may think, in my industry or in my company's culture or in my little tiny group or my great big group, it would look different. So this is part of that handout we gave you, is so that you can kind of tweak that and make notes on that, how you might adopt it in your world. All right, so let's jump into our assessment. So what does your team do? So there's a lot of different things a team, most of us, when we think about what does a team do, it's usually either a project where it has a beginning and an end, and it has some, wheels turning in between to get things done, right? Or it's a process where you have this ongoing wheels that are turning. There might be complexity to it, there might not be, but it's ongoing. It's always going to be happening. It's always going to be required, like accounts payable. You're always going to want your accounts payable working, right? It's never going to end, let's hope. So you have those are pretty common process, operational teams or project management teams, but there's lots of other things you could set. Maybe you want to set teams up in order to represent departments, like your operating model is set up, right? A lot of people want to set up teams and channels for every department they have, but that's not necessarily required. A group chat may suffice, depending on how much chit chat they have and how much process they have, right? Or maybe you have a sudden situation that comes about, like a committee meeting. It could be a pretty benign scenario where a committee is going to come together and quickly plan an event, or maybe a committee is going to come together and quickly solve a customer problem that customers are experiencing, right? And then maybe you have need for public teams where you need something that, especially in today's world where all of a sudden we're all working at home, right? How do we interact? And there's no water cooler to go have a chit chat about your new car, whatever it is that's going on in your life, or your kid's honor roll achievement, right? So you may want to create a social team where people can join and interact and have social conversation that they would normally have with their peers, and even on a global level, right? Or maybe you need an informational team where it's also public and people need to have updates about regular information, like, maybe you're rolling out something really big, it's corporate, company, small company wide, right? Whatever it is. And it's something like maybe Teams, right? You need to give people updates on what's going to happen next and when it's going to happen so that their adoption is in place. All right. So that is, what does your team do? First, you got to define that. Now, actually, I should have said what you want to do is get everybody in a room. I forgot this part. Get everybody in a room so that you can all do this together. So as you're thinking about what does your team do, you have all the perspectives in line. So your team may have 100 people on it, and you don't want all 100 people in a conference room doing this, or even on a meeting doing this. It's too many people, too many inputs, right? But you can get a perspective from all the different features or functions of that team and all the different verticals or horizontals, however you like to describe it in your world, industries, segments, operations, sales, your operating model, whatever it is, whatever perspectives that you need in order to look at that function or that team as a full sphere or a cube, right? You're looking at all different angles of it. Then those are the people that need to be involved so they can all have input, right? So how do they do what they do? The first part was easy. What do they do? What's their role? And the second part is a little bit more complex. So you might need to actually map this out depending on the complexity of your team. Map this out on a wall with sticky notes. I've done it a million times. I used to refer to it as value stream mapping. And it's that opportunity to be able to say, hey, these are all the steps that we take to do what we do. These are critical steps. These are where handoffs exist. These are wasteful steps. Maybe we need to get rid of them, that sort of thing. But it helps you see it in a visual manner. And you can identify things that might be critical to the setup of your team. Like maybe everybody on the team is doing a portion of the heavy lifting. It doesn't matter who does it. It doesn't matter if they have a certain degree or certain experience. It's just everybody's got to do the heavy lifting. Or maybe everybody has a specific criteria or role that they play, and they contribute a specific piece to the puzzle, and it all connected together creates the output, right? Maybe they use certain applications and in order to do their job, and maybe they're unique. They're applications that are unique to your company or your industry, something along those lines. You have to consider that. You need to identify, is this going to have a deadline, an end date? Is it ongoing? Is it more process-based? Or is it kind of both, where it has a rolling deadline? Maybe they need to have meetings. So just these are things that you need to identify. Having that visual process in place will help you consider all the pieces, parts. All right. Then you also want to think about their challenges, because if there's anything that you can head off at the pass, as we like to say, to use as many figures of speeches today as I can, or preemptively consider, right? Then let's do that, right? Let's give these people the best experience while transitioning into teams that they could possibly have, or just, in their new work environment that you're creating, right? So it could be that if that team exists today, you may already know that because they're global, they have a hard time catching up with each other, or because they manage a lot of they have a lot of knowledge management responsibilities, and so there's a version control piece. Or maybe they're very siloed. Everybody has very individual roles that they do, and they tend to have branching conversations in the email and in chat because they don't keep that all together, because they're so siloed, right? They see themselves as this separate entity. Maybe it's balancing that public and private requirement. All right. So let's talk about the final question, which is, what are your team's measurable requirements for success? So I like to see, how do you know that your team's doing well? So you probably have some measurements today, whether they're formal or not. So let's just say that if they're formal, they're going to look more like KPIs or key performance indicators, right? Control metrics, customer benchmarks. Maybe you're using something like that. Maybe you're using an employee engagement survey. Maybe you have a question or two that's related to your group and gives you an idea of where people fall on the happiness scale of being an employee and under the group that they work in, right? Or maybe it's a project, and as long as you're on time and you're in budget, you're good to go. It could be any of those things. It could be as formal and informal as it needs to be. But what you want to do definitely before creating the group and teams is understand where they sit today. So that's one thing I think that's important. What's the line in the sand today, your benchmark measure? And then I think the other thing that's important is, will these measurements still work in teams? Right? And do you need to add anything else? So if you're not doing an employee engagement piece today, you're probably going to want to add one once they get into Teams if they've not used Teams before. And even if they have, if you're creating a workspace that's complex for them, you may want an employee engagement piece, like a quick temperature check of some kind, just to know that the place that you've created is good for them. So those are some ideas, right? All right, so get your benchmark in place and find out how you can do a temperature check before and after. All right. Now, it's about this time that I like to kind of walk over the benefits and considerations. We all know the benefits of Teams, right? That ability to be able to be connected anywhere, anytime, to have full transparency of everything that you're working on with your colleagues, to be in sync and on track with everything that you're doing, have that integrated workspace, your meetings, your files, everything is all in one-stop shop, and everything's centralized, right? So that those are awesome features, and that's why we're all here and why we're all using Teams, right? But there are some considerations. One, you have to consider, if you're a decision maker in the class today, or your decision maker, consider the organization guidance. So if you don't have guidance today, you may want to think about, well, should everybody be able to open a team and channel, and should everybody be able to make a private channel, for example, or something along those lines. So and you'll want to be able to give guidance to your employees, especially if you're in a really big company, about how to proceed. And if your organization has already rolled out Teams, then you may already have that guidance in place, and you'll want to find out what that guidance is so you stay within those parameters. And then you'll also want to have in place learning and support. So you can certainly use the learning that we provide that's free of charge. We have 5 classes, like I went over earlier, right? Or you can create your own learning. Or maybe your organization has some learning, or maybe you can use a combination of the 3, right, to help people learn and build skills in using Teams. And then note that, everybody deals with change at a different pace and in a different way. And so not everybody's going to jump on the bandwagon as quickly. And some people are early adopters and they jump on and they just go crazy. And the next thing you know, they've opened 25 teams and each team has 200 channels under it, and nobody knows where to talk about anything or where to share anything because there's too many places to possibly do it in, right? So that's the other piece that we have here, is be deliberate. So when you're thinking about whether or not your work group needs its own team and channel, or it needs its own channel, or it needs its own group chat, be deliberate about that and really be conscientious about what you're creating out there. Okay? All right. So my caveat in place, we've done our assessment, right? So now I'm going to show you 3 scenarios. And each of these scenarios, we've done an assessment, and I'm going to ask you to tell me what you think they should do. Okay, so I'm going to start with, so we've got 3 scenarios. One is a sales pitch, one is a learning and development process team, and the last one is a cross-departmental committee team. All right. So you guys ready? Got to be ready, because I'm going to be expecting some responses. So this is how this is going to work. I'm going to give you the pitch of what's going on with that client. Here's the assessment, what we came up with, and then I'm going to post a poll. I'm going to ask you to choose in the poll whether or not you would set them up in a team and channel environment or in a chat and meeting environment. Okay. Then I want you to actually post into chat what you picked and why you picked it. So like, I picked teams and channels because I think I would use channels for XYZ, whatever it is. Okay. So I want to hear your rationale behind your choice. All right. And there's a lot of you, so I may not be able to read out all of them, but we'll start with scenario A here. Oh, well, let me level set first. So just in case you guys haven't been through all the classes, I want to make sure you know the difference between chat and teams and channels. So in a chat, anybody can initiate a chat. Chats are always private. You can only join a chat if somebody invites you to a chat. You can't bust into somebody's chat. Chats are like text messages. They're rapid fire. They go back and forth. They're not threaded. The meetings are standalone, they're separate, they have their own chat, share your own files in there, and fully contained. If you share a file in a meeting or in a chat, then it's actually sitting on the user's OneDrive in an open status or a shared status. And you can use apps in a chat. You can build out a tab line and have applications, but you don't have access to all applications, just some. And then in a team and channel environment, you can have multiple levels. So you can have owners and moderators and guests and members. So you can set permissions based on levels. And teams and channels can be either private or public, and they can be org-wide if you have less than 5,000 people, right? And channels can be private or public, so that's an interesting twist as well, right? And your messages are threaded because you can have up to 5,000 people in a team and channel environment, and so having that threaded message ability helps you track your conversation. And there's more options in the messaging piece. Your meetings are integrated into the channel. It's truly a one-stop collaboration shop. And all of your shared files are on the SharePoint library, and you have full access to all of your applications. All right, with that, here's our first scenario. I'm going to post the poll. You can go ahead and read as I do this. All right, so in this scenario, we have 5 people. They're in various time zones. So we got one in Singapore, a couple in Western Europe, and a couple in the US. Right? Different parts of the US. And they're all collaborating on they're working to build a pitch for a new potential client that's in the appliance factory industry, right? So they build appliances for a living. That's what they do. And so there's only 5 team members. They have 2 deliverables. They got to do a PowerPoint presentation. They're all working on that together. They got to do a statement of work or a contract. They're all working on that together. They will need to leverage some research information in order to really make their content that they pitch compelling. And then they got about 2 months before they actually have to pitch this. So what say you? Did you answer the poll? And if you have, then post into chat why you picked what you picked and what you picked. So did you pick chat-based and why? And did you pick team and channel and why? Love to hear from you. While you're doing that, I'm going to check out the poll. So we have quite a few people that have picked chats, but still way more that pick teams and channels. So I want to hear your reasoning. Do tell. I'm just looking, waiting. All right, so we've got somebody here that says they picked chat because it contained a tentative project. So the sales pitch could be successful. If the sales pitch was successful, maybe then a team is warranted. Oh, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one. Okay, we got somebody who picked a team and channel, but they didn't give me the other half of that reasoning. So one-time project, so they picked channel because of time zones. Deliverable is a presentation and need to consult with external information and have a timeline to work on the project. They picked teams and channels, all right. We have chat-based workspaces. There's only 5 people. Okay, interesting. I picked a team and channel because they can work together on documents and teams. Okay, I choose teams and channels because to enable apps like Planner and review documents. Okay. Teams and channels because of various time zones, because this is a group of people with the same purpose. They picked a team. Chat for shorter term, time zones, teams and channels, different time zones, teams and channels, working on a document, different time zones, teams and channels. I'd say chat, different time zones, nothing that official. Interesting. Okay, teams and channels because they will need to collaborate in files, share, and information, and add information. Okay. Only one project? All right, teams and channels, SharePoint library, might need to keep documents. Okay, I'm just looking. Wow, we've got, and the messages are piling in, right? Full access to apps, OneNote if needed. And everybody's just adding on. I love it. I love how engaged you guys are. I think it's really important for learning in this environment that you are engaged, and that I think that helps kind of make the information stick. So you want to know what Sarah and I picked? Okay, are you ready? We picked chat. So I know that some of you are like, what? Why would you pick chat? You have teams and channels. I know we have teams and channels, but I'm going to tell you why we didn't pick teams and channels. This is not a very complex project, right? It's just 2 deliverables. It's not like everybody needs their own workspace in order to do their job, right? So teams, a lot of people think that they pick teams and channels because of the 24-hour thing, but chat has persistent chat as well. So you can use a chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? And you can collaborate on content in a chat just like you can in a channel. You don't have to have SharePoint. You can use the OneDrive. And sorry, I'm just having some allergy issues. And the main thing here is that it lacks complexity. You just have the 2 deliverables to do. And so let's think about this a little bit. You always have to follow the guidelines of your organization. If your organization says this is a team and channel environment, then guess what? It's a team and channel environment for you, okay? But what we like to say is that, if you have a company of, say, 150,000 employees, right? And you have 5 people that are working on a short-term project that has very little complexity, and you open a team and channel for that might be overkill. It's not really what they need, and that's where things can kind of get out of control, where you're constantly opening a bunch of teams and channels, or a bunch of channels under a team, right? This is a temporary thing. They may or may not sign the contract, right? Whereas in a chat-based, you can still do exactly all of those things. It's kind of like having a small informal group, but you can still work together in a more intimate setting, right? All right, so let's take a look at how this looked. All right, so we're going to go to chats here. So here we are. We've got the refrigerators right here and the meeting. So this is their work group, the refrigerators. And as you can see, they've had a lot of conversation. Their conversation goes back quite a ways, right? And Grady set this up. He added all 5 people into this group. It's private conversation. They've had, as you can see way back here, oops, there we go. He reached out to him and said, hey, let's get together. We're going to use this space. He built out this tab line for them. I'll go through that in just a minute. He did use Poly. So he used this for a couple of reasons. Well, he used it for one reason, and that was to get them to come up with a team name. And the reason why he wanted a team name, so you can see he picked the washer and dryers. They didn't like that. They came up with the refrigerators. I think that was a better choice too. The reason why he named the team is for 2 reasons. One, it kind of built some camaraderie, getting everybody to break the ice and come up with ideas for naming the team. But 2, when he was done with this group after 2 months, he can go ahead and hide. He can unpin and then hide this team or this chat. And if he pitches to the client and they sign the SOW, 2, 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, you need to upsell to that client, he can easily search on the name of this client or the name of this chat and find it and restore it and lift that information. So he always has access to it, right? And the name makes it easier to search on than the name of the 5 people in the organization that he worked with, right? All right, so as you can see, he reached out to him. He shared a blank statement of work and a blank pitch deck to start with, as well as a link, right? And it went back. They went back and forth on all this information in order to get everything done. And if you come up here, he built out this tab line for them. So they always have chats and files. No matter where you go in Teams, you have a place where you can send a chat and a place where you can share your files. So all the files are accessible right here. He did make the presentation front and center, right? So he went ahead and created put this deck right on the tab line. It's accessible in this file tab, but he created it right here on the tab line so everybody could get to it. As you can see, they can continue to co-author in it, and they can go through all the slides and make comments and comments on the slides, or using the co-authoring tool. Either way, they can still from here even open it in a desktop app or in the browser or download it. All right, he did that also with the SOW. Again, front and center, easy to access. So somebody said, so this suggests lower numbers, chat-based, right? Not necessarily. You can have up to 100 people in a chat, um, and you can have up to 5,000 in a channel, right? So yes, I guess lower numbers could play a part in that respect. But I think what's really important here is the complexity overall. And the lower numbers is one of the contributing factors to it not having a lot of complexity. The fact that there's only 2 documents, you don't need channels to collaborate on them, is another reason. All right, so you have the SOW here. Everybody can also co-author on that. And then we have, remember that I told you they needed access to some industry information, so they can get that right here. He just added this as a website, and then he added a Trello app that they could use. And you can see here, he also added another link, right? All right. So he also created a regular meeting. This is a meeting, an official meeting. It's separate. Everything's contained. As you can see, it's reoccurring. They've met multiple times, and every time they've shared some meme, some Giphy about some location in the world, right? So maybe you're seeing a location you've been to or live at now. I don't know. And they've also recorded all of them. All right. So they have their files, and they also have their meeting notes. And look, their meeting notes are pretty extensive. So that's what a recurring meeting looks like for them. All right. So that was pretty cool. We didn't actually, I see, sorry, I missed how to create different labels. We didn't actually go over how to do that. We'll look at that in the Learn to Use Apps class, or and maybe a little bit tomorrow. But those are just the tabs that they set up. So today's class is really strategy based. All right, so I'm going to just take a look at the next one. All right, I'm going to post the poll. You guys can read that while I'm putting the poll out there. All right, so in this one, this is a process team. And it has, I'm just going to real quick answer this question. Can I add an Excel sheet in a chat group? You can. And can multiple people update the status at the same time? Yes, they can. You absolutely can do that. Okay. So this is a process team. They have about 80 people on the team, and they have about 6 different processes. And of those 6 different processes, there's like 10 to 25 members that are a part of that process, or that group, if you will, right? They work all over the globe. They use a lot of applications. They use Planner, they use Yammer, they use Power BI. They use a lot of different applications. And it's ongoing project management. So it's forever. You're always going to have a training team. So what do you guys think? What do you think it's going to be, teams and channels, or do you think it's going to be a chat-based with a meeting? You're welcome. I'm just looking to see. Okay, I'm just going to go look at your poll here. Overwhelmingly, we have teams and channels. I got a few people here that say chats and meetings. Probably trying to, because they picked teams and channels last time. So a lot of people do that. They're like, I really wasn't expecting it to be chat. And so then so what do you think? Different groups equals different channels. Okay. 5 sub-teams, 5 channels with different interested members could use the private channels for senior level, use tabs and external apps. He's thought that through. Scenario B would be teams, okay, complex project. And there is the key word, complexity, okay? So when you think about the difference between chats and teams and channels, what you think about is the level of robust access that you have, right? So in a chat environment, you can't really manage a super complex situation because it doesn't have channels, it doesn't have as many apps you can add. There's just limitations in place, right? It's a little bit more informal workspace. Whereas in teams and channels, you have a lot more complexity that you can create or you can accommodate, right? All right, so what do you think we picked? We picked teams and channels. You were right. We didn't fool you this time. All right, so we're going to go over here to teams and channels. I'm going to give you a quick look at what's going on here. So let me close up these other ones. Here we go. The Learn and Development Delivery Team right here. So as you can see, they have several channels. So we always have a general channel. Every time you open a team, you have a general channel. Look at all those answers. There's so many of you today. I love that you're so engaged. All right. So in the general channel, what they did is they went to the three ellipses right here, right? And they went to manage channel and they locked this down so only owners can post messages. And the reason why is other than the 80 people that all have responsibilities in these different channels, they also have training managers that come in and they're going to be requesting their new trainings, whether it's a classroom or a virtual training. Right. So they have this, they were worried that the general channel then would end up being this dumping ground of communication, right? Because like the kitchen sink. So what they did is they set this up as kind of an onboarding area. So they have a regular meeting. Training managers can come and hear the status of the implementation of the course that they requested or the sessions that they requested, whichever it may be. As you can see, they've had meetings in here. They also have this please read. So they're using this kind of as an announcement area. So people, new training managers that come in or people who are new to the group even can come in and learn about what this group does and about what each channel is used for. As you can see. There you go. So that's the place to start. Then they have a kudos section. They have a kudos section. And I see somebody said that their OCD noticed that the presentation says scenario B and the poll says scenario 2. That's Sarah and I morphing our content over time. You'll have to excuse us on that one. All right, so we have our kudos channel. This is a couple of reasons why we use this. One, this is where we set up our recognition programs, and you can see we can give kudos to each other, but also training managers can come in and give kudos, right? And we have our news channel. This is really for the people in the training group where they can get updates on the latest articles that have to do with their content area, whether it's distant learning or measurement and learning or any kind of e-learning, whatever it is, it's all available right here. This is a connector. It updates daily. And in our Learn to Use Apps class, we go over how to install and manage connectors, right? And then we have a management team. This is a private channel, and only people who are part of this channel can see this channel. So if you're not part of the management team, you won't be able to see that channel. It's private, and you can tell it's private. It has this little lock right next to it. And then we have our process all set up. So in channels, you cannot move these channels. You can't. They are where they are. Okay, you can't move them. So what we did is we numbered them in order to keep them in process order, so that when training managers come in, they'll see, new course request form. This is where they go to request a new course. And you can see the people that work in this group have a place to chit chat, and training managers can come in here and ask questions if they would like to. They have a place to post files. They have a wiki if they want to choose. I haven't used that. And then they added this Forms Microsoft program called Forms, where training managers can come in and submit a request for a new course. And then the course, if it's a classroom course, gets handed off to process 2.A, right? And this tab line was built out for this group. They also have a meeting. So they have a meeting notes tab that's automatic. Notice the meeting is, where'd it go? There it is, built right in to the channel here for everybody to go to. They have a calendar. This is just an Excel spreadsheet. Don't get really excited. There is an Outlook app coming out for Teams where you will have your group calendars included. And then they have a planner application. I know people love Planner. I'll tell you what, if you can come up with, can you create a private file in an open channel? I don't think so. Not unless you can do it on the SharePoint with SharePoint permissions. It's not a Teams option. Let me put it that way. All right, so let's check out this. So if I want to add to my planner application a new class, so say I have a new classroom class and it's called, let's see, glass blowing. That has to be done in person. You can't teach that virtually, I don't think. I can set a due date, right? So say we're going to have this class launch by April 14th. I can assign it. I'm going to assign it to Grady, and I'm going to assign it to Jordan, right? So I've got my people. I'm going to add the task in. So now here's the task. I can click on the card, and I can say that it's in progress. I can add an attachment. I can add a checklist if I want. I can make it an important or low priority. Maybe the training manager kind of got to us last minute. Excuse me. And I can even put comments in here, right? So the other thing I can do is I can move this task across the buckets, or I can copy it. When I copy it, I can move it to the next bucket like that. So a lot of times, the reason why that's important is because if I wanted to, I could move this across the buckets. But I can also, if I copy it and move it, it sort of tracks the time, the dates that it changed, you know? So my process is going across up here. When we have a new class, we have to do a learning management system entry. We have to do marketing for it. If it's a classroom course, we're going to be securing event space. Food and beverage contracts and materials and assessments have to be sent to the faculty in the classroom area. They also have their curriculum updates. And then they've added a specific folder to the tab line from their SharePoint site. So that is that group. Then the virtual, so this is 2B, they have the same setup. The main difference here is in their planner application, they don't have the same process, right? Because they don't need event space or food and beverage. Then we have faculty procurement. And the only thing different here, they also have a meeting, so have meeting notes. I believe this is a planner application, so they have their process set up. And they're using Yammer to as a closed group to reach out to their faculty and ask them if they want to take on new classes. And then we have our certification, evaluation, and reporting group here. And the big thing different for them, they're using forms for their SMILE survey, and they're using Power BI to show the output of their certification achievements. And they have a OneNote too right here. All right, so that's how the Learn and Development team got together, got their act together and managed their process. All right, we have one more, folks. Scenario C. So this is a cross-departmental team. They're responsible for having a community meeting every quarter, and that community meeting is pretty comprehensive. So it has, let me put out the scenario here. There we go. The poll's out there now. So in their case, they have, it's not that hard of a project on the surface, right? There's only 5 of them. They're all in Denver, Colorado. They do use a lot of different files and applications. They do this every quarter, so it's this rolling deadline. So there's that weird kind of frequency that kind of makes it complex. But the event itself is kind of complex. So they have 1,000 people attend. Every event has a keynote speaker. They do some fun kind of live polling type stuff, and they also do some fun award giveaways. And then they go into breakout sessions, and they have to manage those. And then also they offer lunch during the keynote speaker, and then they offer a snack during the breakout sessions, and then afterwards they have a happy hour. Don't you want to work for that company? I mean, seriously. Anyway, so they do that every quarter. So what do you guys think? Do you think it's do you think it's going to be a team and channel environment or a chat environment? I see somebody ask the question, why Yammer instead of the built-in chat and Teams? If I can't add my faculty to just that channel, I would have to add them to the entire team. And then I've got this huge team, whereas I can create a private group on Yammer and they can get that ping on their phones, right? Using using Yammer on their phones. So, and then that way I'm not interspersing all their conversations, not just another chat for them to have to deal with in Teams, right? All right. So let's see what folks said here. So overwhelmingly, I have teams and channels. I have quite a few, though. I had over 30 people that said chats and meetings, but more than double that said teams and channels, way more than double. So just looking at this, we picked, I'm just going to see what you guys, wait first, I want to see what you guys picked. Teams and channels, it seems very complex. It is kind of complex. It's not as complex as the learn and development team, really, because you only have to do it once a quarter. But planning different apps makes it complex. Okay, yep, teams and channels. May I add teams or chats, people outside of become, okay, I'll have to answer that on the side. I choose teams and channels for the longevity and complexity. Yep, there is some complexity. Chat, the event may be complex, but the planning is less, especially for the first few. Okay. Regular continuous efforts, team and channel. It sounds too easy or uncomplicated. That's why I reckon we do not need a team. Are you from Texas? All right. I'm just looking here. All right. Yammer for wider comms and stakeholders outside of team members is a great idea. Oh, thank you. All right. So Sarah and I chose, ta-da, teams and channels. So this one, I'll be honest, we were on the fence. Could have gone either way. You could do this in a chat. There's no reason why you couldn't do it in a chat. It's not that complex, but it was the rolling deadlines that got to us. It was like, you're kind of planning one while you're executing another one. So, so what we did, and remember, I see somebody said chats can only handle 100 people. It's 1,000 people that attend the event, right? But it's only 5 people that are doing the planning for it. So what we did is we set up each quarter with a channel. And that way the planning and execution for this channel for this quarter is in this channel, and the planning and execution for this quarter is in this channel, right? So that way it made it just easier to manage those rolling deadlines and keep everything straight. What keynote speaker is going to be at which event, that sort of thing. Sometimes you got to schedule things, especially keynote speakers, way in advance, and venues way in advance, right? All right. So that was kind of cool. All right, so step 3. Well, now we've assessed the team. We've gotten them implemented. We've made a decision where they're going to be working and what kind of applications they're going to need and what kind of channels they're going to need. All of that, we've done all of that, right? So how do we maintain it? Well, the main thing that we do is that we reach out to them, and we have those focus groups or that employee engagement little survey. You can use Poly. There's a lot of different things you can use, right, to survey your group and find out if they're happy where they're at. And you can find out, are their meetings working out for them? Do we need to do something different? Are the applications that they're using, are they having stumbling blocks that they're running into? Is there something else that they need, or maybe it's not the right application? Do we need additional channels or workspaces of some kind? Maybe they need a bot or something to help them get a task done or sign tasks or something along those lines. So it's really just about having an agile mindset and teaching the folks that are a part of that group to also have an agile mindset and to really think through, well, where are your obstacles and where do you need help and what could be more efficient or more effective for you? And then working together to achieve that, either through continuing to build out your workspace, using the right applications, providing process, and having a good process design in place, right? All right. So let's talk about personal productivity. We've spent a lot of time talking about how to set up teams, work groups, right? But let's talk about how do you manage your own personal productivity. Well, I've got a couple of little tips and tricks for you here. You can do a personal team, you can do a private channel, and then we also have some personal apps that you can use. All right, whoops. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So here we are in the team and channel environment, and you have a couple of options. You can see here I've got Grady's private workspace. So if you have the ability, if you can come down here to join or create a team and you have access to creating a team on your own, Grady has created a team where he's the only owner and he's the only member. And what he did, and he could add his boss as a member, so his boss would have access to seeing what he's working on. He could do that too if he wanted to, or even his employees. But then it just becomes a team, right? So he's using the general channel to kind of map out his tab line. So he has up here, he's using Planner as a application for his to-do list. He's got a OneNote in here that's collaborative. And I'm not sure why OneNote's been acting a little bit weird the last couple of days. And then he's got his own personal OneNote in here that he can use to document things that are important to him, right? And then he built out a channel for each of the projects he's working on. And as you can see, he's working on this project management project right now. That's a lot of project words. And so he's added a planner application for that. And he's also added a forms application for his needs analysis. All right, so that's one way. That's using a private channel or a private team. But let's just say that you cannot open your own team and channel, right? Well, what you could do is whatever group you're working in, say that you work in the Learn and Development team, you can open your own private channel and make it your personal workspace. And then what you can do is you can pin that channel to the top, along with any other channels that you use on a regular basis. So let's go there. Here's my pinned channels, including my private workspace. And you'll see in Grady's case, he offers support to the Learn and Development delivery team and the engineering team. So he has a private channel at each of those. So we've got this private channel. Nobody can see it but him. He could add in his boss if he wanted to, or other people, but then it just becomes a private channel with other people in it. And he has built out this tab line. Now, when you're in a private channel, you're a little bit more limited as to the types of applications you have available to you. So he added his document library. This is his SharePoint library that he uses in another team. He added a Meister task. So this is a third-party application. It has a freeware version of it. And what I mean by that, it's a lot like Planner, but Planner doesn't work in private channels. So he couldn't use Planner as a to-do list. So instead he's using Meister task. And it's a lot like Planner. It has a lot of features and it's free the first 3 times that you use it. And after that, you have to upgrade, right? All the features on it are also free except, why isn't that? It should show it right here. No, maybe it's because it's a completed task. Yeah, repeat. You can't use the repeat a task feature. That's the only one that you can't use. We show this, we demonstrate this particular app in our Learn to Use Apps class. I think it's a pretty cool application for its price, right? All right, and then he also added Trello, which is kind of like Meister task, right? And you got buckets and cards. And then he has his wiki team data. So this is where he can go for all of his wiki team information. All right. So those are your private channel options and private team options. Oh, we didn't look at personal apps. Let me do that real quick. So personal apps can be accessed right here in the App Store. Just go to personal apps. These are applications. They have a couple of features in them that make them different, stand out from other apps. And one is that they can work in a collaborative nature or they can work in an individual nature. So let's take OneNote, for example. You can have a collaborative OneNote and you can have a OneNote that is private to just you, right? The other, same with Planner, right? The other thing is you can come here, right here to this 3 ellipsis. You can go to these applications like OneNote or Planner and you can see kind of a bird's eye view of that application. So here I'm looking at my Planner task across all my different planning books, right? So I can look at it in a board, I can look at it in a chart or in a schedule of all my tasks if I want to, right? And I can look at it in different slices as well. This is kind of a feed activity. And this is looking at the activity that's happened over time in the different projects I'm working on. So I have a planner in the marketing. I have a marketing planner. I have my private workspace planner. I have my learn and development planner. You know, I have a lot of different planners. So those are all neat ways to look at that. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. All right, so what's next for you? Oh, I'm close here. All right, so well, we know what we learned today. Let's go on what you should apply. So next, gather your team, assess their needs, figure out what is the best possible workspace for them, and then go back in and assess that. Once you've set it up and they've worked in it a little bit, you know, take that temperature check, spend time with them, understand, is this workspace working for you? And if it's not, then tweak it. You can always change something, right? That's a great thing about teams is you can make changes. And then set up your own personal team and manage your own or private channel and manage your own personal productivity. So Sarah has probably provided by the way, the handout that you got today will have these live links in it available to you. I highly recommend after tomorrow's class that you take this knowledge level 3 check, and the support.office.com. I always recommend that.